Okay, so we are here with author Roz Ben, and if you have been watching my channel, you'll know that I've been promoting his books. You probably saw me promote Rock of Ages and Free Your Mind and Your Mind Will Follow. And one of my favorites was the Rock of Ages anyway. Then 5G Wellness 101. This is very handy right now and very much needed. And as well as the Great Philadelphia Experiment. So we have author Roz Ben, welcome, and I'm going to let him introduce himself and say hello. So go ahead.
All right, greetings everyone. Thank you, Sister Shera, for inviting me to be a part of your community. Ras Ben, humble servant, been working with the crystals and sacred stones for about 30 years. But I've also been serving in other capacities as well, being here in Philadelphia, which is like, very mystic spot. A lot of things that, are impacting the world jumped off here. And so it's like the historic root and nexus is here, and ancestors that are here and been a part of it, they kind of put me to work recently, kind of on different note from the crystals, but it's all related to the earth, and I feel it is all relevant in these times,
Yeah. When I was reading your book, Rock of Ages, it felt like I was reading like the stuff that I talk about on my channel. I'm like, this is like straight up what I talk about the plasma, the electromagnetic field, ancient Egypt, souls, what a soul really is. And I want to ask, how did you come to the conclusion of, plasma and that souls were electric? And how did you come to that conclusion? Where did you find that knowledge?
Well, it kind of unfolded as a part of my journey where it was like the mineral nation kidnapped me early in the 80s, put me on this mission. But at that time, it was a different time. It's not like now, how there's like an awakening to crystals and sacred stones. People are magnetized to it, Back in that time, spookism reigned. People were kind of shook and scared, like it was the devil, and, like there wasn't no awareness about it, So I felt like I had to inform my market, let them know what this thing was, that it wasn't something that they had to believe in. You know what I mean? That this thing is a science, a spiritual technology. And so that's really what I made my focus, a spiritual technology. Because technology is using tools, and spirit is life force energy. So it's like a spiritual technology. How can we use tools to enhance life force? And so I came up with the terminology of that, and that's basically what Rocks of Ages is. So, that's kind of how that unfolded.
So you were researching, and what put you onto the plasma? Like, what did you read? Or if you can remember, because I know a lot of people, like, especially me, I'm trying to remember where I found it first or what sparked my research. And I'll show you a picture of what sparked my research on, what this was. Okay. So I'm gonna just put a photo up to there. You see?
Yeah. Yes.
So that up to those noses is what made me start looking deeper, because I knew that an was just not a symbolic, thing that people carried. I know it had to be some type of energy harness. And I was I was looking at the all the Egyptian, hieroglyphs and pictures, and I kept seeing the and I said, that's electricity that has some type of energy in it, or a soul plasma or something like that. So I don't know. I think it was from ancient Kemet that I got that plasma energy relation.
Well, it kind of came to me through realizing that plasma is a gaseous crystal,
Hmm.
you know, like just how water can crystallize and that they're, you know, solid crystals. There's also gaseous crystals, and
Hmm.
that's plasma, you know, and plasma's electric,
Yeah.
plasma's life force, you know.
And you know how I got that? Like the embalming process or the mummification process of ancient Kemet, the specific organs that they chose to put in the canopic jars were the most gaseous organs and also had
Mm,
the most melanin. So,
mm,
because, I used to be a mortician. So, that's what I was focused on. And then I said, okay. And then also the organs that they chose, most of them were dual. They had two sides. And then I saw the scales of my aunt. And so, it just all led to me understanding on a deeper level the plasma and the eumelanin and all that kind of stuff. Um, and then the Ankh would hold some of that life force energy or that crystalline life force energy, and they would give it to the next pharaoh or whoever from a previous one.
yes,
Yeah. So,
yes.
and then, let's go into conspiracy for 1 second. You always see a lot of these celebrities with broken noses,
Mm.
or nose issues. You know what I'm saying? We have like, especially if you go far back. And so I think they're still practicing that today. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Something to think about.
Cutting off one's ashe through obstructing the nasal.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yes.
But it could be good or bad depending on, kind of like the movie Get Out.
Yes.
Okay. I want to ask you. Okay, so your book. Let's switch to this one. Free your mind, free your mound, and your mind will follow. So this talks about the burial sites of like the indigenous people and how they were built on like places on the earth grid or vortex or whatnot, or some
Yeah.
of okay, so I had some questions about that. There was a huge Indian burial ground like about 2 miles from where I live, and they built like a freeway thing, and they had to stop to excavate all the bodies, and then they continued building. Are they harnessing energy through this freeway? Are they harnessing energy from the earth grid, or is it the earth grid harnessing energy through the energy from the dead or the energy from the cars passing on the freeway?
Well, it is a harnessing of the energy, but also just a manipulation of it, where more than likely those ones that they excavated and exhumed out of there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those are our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
they would be the ones that, like, you know how your star goddess magic just might really work in that Houston area.
Mm-hmm.
Like it might not work other places. You go someplace and it's just like your vibes don't pop. It don't, there's no magi for you. But where you are, or like certain places you find yourself, it'll just be a lot of synchronicity, a lot of like things affirming that the ancestors that are around you, like they working with you and they want you there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens when, well, that gets disrupted when they mash up our mounds, when they tear up our burial, our ancestors' burial grounds, or they build their edifices, their cathedrals, their museums, their universities, their golf courses. They put all these things on top of our mounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
To Because we didn't bury our ancestors like randomly. we put them in vortexual places on the earth, places where there was a high frequency, a high magnetic charge, you know? And so that way, when we connected with, it was like, there's basically 3 realms of spirit. There's that ancestral realm, there's like earth spirit, nature spirit, and then there's the celestial realm, right? We would align the mounds with some type of constellation or star formation, right? We'd build them on the vortexes, and we'd put our ancestors there. So when we would go there at appointed times, full moons, equinox, solstice, you know, we'd get those downloads. We'd connect with the ancestors. We'd sync up with nature. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so a big part of capturing us, right? If they can control our spirit, they don't have to control our mind.
Mm-hmm.
If they control our mind, they don't have to control our emotions. And if they control our emotions, they don't have to control our body.
Right.
That's how we're free slaves, you know? So the idea is, if we want to free our mind, get our emotions aligned, be self-determined with our body, we got to get our spirit right.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of that is lining up with the global mound matrix, reawakening these mounds, get them ancestors, feed them ancestors. Just like I say, like, I'm sure you've got some synchronistic ancestral nexus where you are, right? We got to awaken that, not just for us, but for everyone, you know? So that's the idea behind free your mound and your mind will follow.
I feel that because when I was growing up, I lived a few miles from where I live now, and then my mom moved far, the same city but far away. And then when I had my children, I moved back because I resonated with the energy here. A lot of indigenous energy here. We used to find arrowheads in our backyard. I had my most I wouldn't say paranormal, but spiritual experiences here where I am. And that's why I decided to move back here to raise my kids. It was, like I said, like 1 or 2 miles from where those mounds were found. So
yes,
something drew me back here.
yes. So that's the science with free your mind and your mind will follow, you know?
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people will really get a lot out of this because this one stood out to me a lot because of, and it's very easily, written so that anyone can understand it. And that's what I really like about that.
Thank you. Well, that's the way that evolved. That's like a field guide to the Great Mystery Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
The Great Mystery Philadelphia, even though it's focused on like the art and the architecture and the archetype symbols of the city, it really deals more like with the history.
Oh yeah, like I thought about that movie National Treasure when I was reading it.
Yes, yeah. This is the real national treasure, which is us. And that's what's encoded here in Philadelphia for sure. And but the thing was, the way that book came together was such a focus on history, mystery, and prophecy. There wasn't room for discussion on how to decode the art and the architecture, and why are they built in these certain places, and what's their relationship to one another here within the city, and then within the broader nation as a whole, So that's what inspired me to pull together Free Your Mind and Your Mind Will Follow,
Yeah, that's very interesting. And like I said, I think a lot of people will want that because it's like, if you're a history buff, if you like science and history put together with spirituality, that book is really good. Now, Rock of Ages. This must took you a long time to gather information on. It's
Yes.
just like, to me, this is like 5 books in one. You could have made 5 books, but you put all of the information in one. And that's good because it all relates. And I think I like how you put the information all together to show the relation, because a lot of people won't relate one thing to another. They'll be walking around with a crystal on and have no idea what the plasma is, you know. Or so I'm glad you put it all in one book, but and started off with like the ancient Kemet and all the stories that, like, whenever someone asks me, how do you learn how to decode, how you learn like what all this stuff means, I say it's a long journey, and you got to start with the history. And, you know, it's hard to explain. So I'm so glad you wrote this, because it's like you got to start from here, and you'll see parallels in many things, many stories, many movies, and you'll be able to relate back to it and see what symbols are being used in place of another symbol that you might have read in a story, or, you know, in the Bible or whatnot. And then, you know, that's just with the history part. But the plasma, the energy, the stones, the crystals, the melanin, it's all in here. And Lumerian, speed crystal, and African perspective. So you give like specific stones, specific perspectives. It's just an awesome book for just anybody, a beginner, or, you know, someone that's been in the game for a while. But I wanted to ask you about, I guess it's Okubin. I hope I'm saying it right. Akubin, the melanin quartz synergy. Everything is vibration. Can you kind of talk on that just a little bit?
Yes. Well, I should say that, so what you have is the second edition of Rocks of Ages. The first edition came out in 2000. That was the expanded reprint that came out in 2008. What came out in 2000 was focused mostly on crystals.
Okay.
Well, 2008, you know, 2012 was on the horizon, and we needed insight on what that meant from our, you know, our ancient star clocks, you know. That's what a new edition is, you know. But Akubin was from the original Rocks of Ages, and it was really the paradigm we used to study ancient Kemet, the melanin quartz synergy. That what we say is that in Kemet, the stones they used weren't random. They used stones that either mimic melanin or charged or empowered melanin, right? So quartz crystal or silica, you know, quartz, like the most common crystal we know of. When we say crystal, you think of quartz. Foundation of most of our technology. Melanin, they mimic one another in what they do. They're able to process a lot of information and energy simultaneously, you know, like a lot of different forms of frequency, and remain stable. Don't break down in spite of letting all this energy move through it and process it, you know? So the Kemites used a lot of silica-based stones, but they also used stones that were the 3 key ingredients of melanin, and that's carbon, copper, and sulfur. So the calcites, the alabasters of Kemet, those were, you know, calcium carbonates. That was how the Kemites integrated carbon stones, you know. Lapis, premier sulfur stone of Kemet. And they had a variety of copper stones that they worked with: azurite, which is copper carbonate, and malachite, which is copper oxide, you know? So we use that as a historic lens to look at what the Kemites were doing, to get a clearer vision of like things Egyptologists kind of mislabel. For example, they say they were sun worshipers, right? because they would spend ceremonial time adorned with headdress and all these things, gazing at the sun. The quartz melanin synergy would say they were feeding their melanin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you say you worked with mortuary sciences, right?
Right.
In Kemet, they would say, like a quote unquote Egyptologist would say that the Kemites were greedy, and they were so greedy they wanted to take their possessions with them to the underworld. So they would take out their organs and put in precious stones,
Mm-hmm.
right? The melanin quartz synergy would say they were making a karas, an immortal body, a body that would be able to conduct life force energy even after that spirit has transcended. You know why? Because melanin, in that process of mummification, they would do two things. They would preserve the skin, right? Preserve the melanin, right? And then take out certain organs and place conductive crystals, melanin mimicking crystals in those cavities, right? And they called what Egyptologists call mummy, they called the karas, which basically means immortal body,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And they would put them in the temples, they put them in the pyramids, which were silica-rich buildings. You know, the material that these buildings were made of were silica-rich. So these acted like ancestral antenna, spiritual broadcast stations that would help keep our connection with the ancestors strong. Basically the same principle we was talking about with the mounds, you know? It's
Mm-hmm.
the same science.
That's what I was thinking. I didn't want to interrupt you though. I'm like, that's how they can give you information and send it out even through their, their dead body.
Yes, the ever-living body.
The ever-living body. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's amazing. And I always thought that that's what they were doing. I didn't think they were greedy. And, I thought all the writings on the wall of the pyramids and whatnot were instructions as well for that, that energy or that spirit and soul as well.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
So I was fortunate in 1987, I was able to visit Kemet for about 3 weeks with Asa Hilliard. And I did get a lot of downloads, as a younger brother. And it put me on a trajectory to be open to receiving information, from the netir,
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah, when I started working with Thoth, that's when I really start to open up as well and get all this information. When I start reading Emerald Tablets and researching a lot about ancient Kemet, that's when it started coming in, because I don't know, I guess when you tap into that frequency, they also are able to give you downloads, even if it's far away in some capacity.
Yes. You're a Pisces, right?
Right.
Yes, well, it's our season, and we are the ones astrologically in this time with Neptune being in Pisces. Many of the downloads that humanity needs to go to the next level, it is coming through the Pisces,
Really? That's
Yeah.
good. Now I know, why I think about certain things that I was not thinking about before. It just pops in my head. So I did set up another part 2 and I sent it to your email because I knew we were gonna run out of time. All you got to do is go and join that meeting, like in 3 minutes.
All
and
right.
so we can go on with part 2 because that's what we got to do.
Sounds good, no worries.
But we got 3 minutes left. So I wanted to ask you about 5G and this will help us roll over to the next one, because I know everybody's going to want to watch part 2 if we roll it over with this. So 5G wellness. Okay, this is a great book to have so you know how to protect yourself. But I have a question about people, spirits, souls, when they pass on. Could 5G network trap that energy or that soul or spirit, depending on its frequency? Could it trap a loved or dead loved one or a dead person, soul spirit up in the informational waves?
You want to open up part 2 with that answer?
Yes.
All right. Yes, I.
Okay, so I emailed you all the info, so all you have to do is come and join, and then we can start part 2.
Sounds good.
Okay, y'all come over there too. All right,
All right.
thank you.